everyone, it's Linda from LyndaCreates, and this is the next step in the slow stitching notebook, and I'm going to be working on the inside, and it doesn't look real pretty right now, but that's what I'm going to do next to make it pretty. It's a D-ring, so the spine is over here and the mechanism is on the right hand side, so they're different sizes. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I have the base fabric and I've measured it out, and I gave myself about a 1-inch seam allowance on 3 sides. And the reason it's 3 sides, let me show you here, is that the 4th side is going to sit as close to the mechanism, the notebook mechanism, as possible. So it's going to sit something like that. So this gives me an idea of where I have to work with and what's going to be, I have to keep fairly clear because the rings are going to hit this part, but I also didn't want to attach down this edge so that it could be slipped off if I need to remove it. So starting, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do on this. I was thinking originally of a pocket, but I wanted it to be beautiful. So I have this piece of, I was told it's hand-dyed silk. I'm just amazed at how beautiful it is. Now, the thing is, it doesn't match anything else so far on the cover. It's a totally different style. But that is the whole thing about the notebook. My slow stitching notebook is to be able to do whatever I wanted to do, highlighting whatever stitching I want to stitch, and just enjoying myself and having fun and experimenting. So I'm going to start working on this inside front cover next. So I'm doing a dry fitting. I have the notebook turned around upside down because I have more space on that side to lay the book open. I'm going to have the fabric end where this fold is, so it will look something like that when I'm done. So I'm going to do a running stitch to hold the silk fabric to the backing fabric, this backing fabric. I'm going to start doing some fun stitching, starting from the center and work my way out. Let's get stitching. For this, I'm using my hoop stand. One part attaches to the table, and then this is the part that holds the hoop. Goes down in here, and it's really nice because you can adjust the height. You can adjust the angle. You can adjust the tilt. And then this part is what grabs the hoop. So I'll adjust my camera a little bit, but you can see that the hoop is now at a height that I can see easily, and I can stitch using both hands. I'm just going to start. So I followed along with a lot of the lines in this area, and I did French knots, but in the center I'm going to do some bullion knots. I decided to do 3 strands, but of 3 different shades of purple. Okay. So I had to take it out of the hoop to do the bullion knot. So just to show what I did, I came up from here. I'm going back in an outer part, and I'll come back up where the start was, and then I'm going to wrap. That's 25. Okay, and I'm using a number 3, Milner's needle, and I think I'm doing about 35 wraps. Okay, so now I'm coming and pulling it through. I'm going to bring it back down. There's my first bullion stitch. That was 35. Let's do, if I can, let's do about 50 wraps. That's 40. And what you can actually do is keep pulling the needle through. So that should be 50 wraps. Let's see what we get. Just to show you, 50 wraps gave it a nice extra length. Okay, so just to show you what these bullion stitches are looking like, and I'm just going to fill in this area with more, and I'm trying to make them all come out from the center, so again it has an organic look. I did my bullion stitches here and my French knots, and now I decided I'm going to follow the circular pattern right here on the fabric, and I'm going to do an open chain stitch. And so I'm using a pearl cotton, and okay, so an open chain stitch, if you think about what a chain stitch looks like, it looks like a lazy daisy stitch. So this is like a very, I don't know, it's a very wide open stitch. So, so So each chain stitch this one is another one of those that might be easier if you did it off the hoop. But can you see the pattern it's starting to create? And the beauty or the fun part about this stitch is that these sizes can vary, the thickness, the length, to create an interesting pattern that you want. So you can see how it does this like a ladder looking, but it's called an open chain stitch. And I'm going to follow it around and do a second row around. And you could make them thicker and thinner, shorter and longer. Just wanted to show when you get to the end of your thread here, how to end the stitch. So you have one hook and you just finish off that stitch. You don't make a chain anymore. And you catch this hook and you just finish off that chain. Now I'm not done yet and I have a little bit to finish here. You can make it really consistent so it almost looks like brickwork, or you can do it kind of random. So I have some really thin ones here and some much thicker ones there. So I did the open chain stitch and I stopped about halfway around because I realized it looks really cool being so free-formed. So it's half a circle on the outside. I like the way how that turned out. I'm back to stitching more French knots in here. I have been stitching away and I just wanted to share at this point. I have added more French knots. And then I did these long stitches. They're just like a stem stitch down this side here. And I kind of followed these lines that are part of the fabric itself. I decided I'm going to start in this area and do the French knots. All in this dark kind of brownish green area. So I'll do basically what I did up in this area, French knots, different shades of green, and then have it just turn into little strings like here. I did a lot of this green stitching here, the French knots, and I was going to start to do some bullion stitches like these, some bullion stitches here, but I realized that I needed to do flat stitches first. If I'm using a hoop, I didn't want to crush the bullion stitches with the hoop, so I decided to do flat stitches, as many flat stitches as possible. What I'm going to do with these, you can see these yellow circular shapes. I've decided on this citrus green kind of color. It is more yellow, but I thought it would blend in a little bit better. So I'm working with 6 strands and I have it off the hoop at the moment. And I'm going to do something similar to this open chain stitch. And I was thinking about it, and I think the open chain stitch would work better off the hoop, but also I think one row of open chain stitch, and then I think I'll come in with the blanket stitch. So I'm going to work with this circular piece. And since it sort of looks like it has a center, it's a little bit darker right there, I'm going to work it as if it is the center. off center, I should say. So now that this is off the hoop, I'm going to work the open chain stitch without a hoop. And the reason I say this is because you could come in a little easier when you do it this way. So the first part, this is like a basic chain stitch, but it's this next stitch, by placing your needle in place, you now hold the stitch in its shape and move on to the next stitch. And by putting my needle in, I'm holding it open. The thing with an open chain stitch is that the stitch doesn't get completed until you work on the next one. And when you work on the next stitch, it's incomplete until you finish the next one. So okay, so that stitch isn't complete until I pull it through, and I can't pull it through until I get the next stitch. Because this is the last stitch, I'm going to finish the left side. And come up and finish the right side. Let me stop and show you where I'm at right now. Okay, so I have the center, but what I want to do now, I'm coming up right over here. I'm going to now work it as a blanket stitch around the center here. I'll show you what I mean. What you can do also is you don't have to keep them all at the same size. Make them wider, make them narrower. I'm going to stop there because I'm almost out of thread. Just going to lock a little stitch right there and come back with more blanket stitch. I wanted to show you the difference between 2 rows of the open chain stitch. So if you notice this row in between the 2 chain stitches, open chain stitches, you could see there's 2 stitches that meet up between the 2. So it's like stacked on top. Whereas with 1 row of the open chain stitch and then starting blanket stitches around it, they actually have only 1 row between them. I thought it looked a little neater, but it's really just a preference. So here I came up, I'm starting a new thread. I came up where I left off, and I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to tack down this corner of the stitch where it ends, and then I'm going to come up with the start of the next row of blanket stitches. The thing I love about this, doing something like this with the either the open chain stitch or the open chain stitch and blanket stitch, is that it can, the sizes can vary, and it create a very interesting pattern. Need my needle puller. Now, as you can see, it's going to get pretty wide out here. I could do a choice of doing really wide stitches or doing half that size, doing 2 rows in there. I'm going to do some really wide stitches. It's going to get pretty wide, but I think it'll be interesting. The other thing too is, usually I would put 1 stitch on each in between here on the previous stitch, but sometimes if it needs to go wider, I will do 2 stitches in there. You could do whatever you want. If you want it to be more, like a consistent look, if you want it to, what I'm trying to do is something a little more organic. It's definitely getting a very organic look. So I could do something like that. And it doesn't even have to be round. You can see some of these shapes are going to be an odd shape. So I have more that I could do over here. And I like the way how it's off-centered. Doesn't have to be perfectly round. I finished 2 more of these circles in a medium green. So I'm going to start doing French knots again. But I'm starting with a lighter purple color, a lavender color, and since it overlaps inside of this ring, I'm going to do some French knots inside of the ring. Why not? And I'm using a pearl cotton, so I'm just doing 2 wraps. And I'm just doing it randomly. And any space, any gaps, I'll fill in with the darker purple. So here's a question. Have you ever done some craft project that you've enjoyed so much that you think about working on it all the time, and you just can't wait to get back to it and do or continue working on it? That's what this feels like. I'm just having a blast doing this. It's so meditative. It's so relaxing. And every once in a while, you come to an area like doing the lavender French knots inside of that area. Like, I wasn't planning on that, but when I looked at it, it looked right. So you just kind of change direction suddenly, and you get these wonderful surprises as you're working. And just want to work that down to a little line. This is the end of the first part of the inside front cover of the Stitch Notebook, and I'm going to keep continuing this, and I'll come back with another follow-up showing more work on this. I just wanted to stop right here and thank everyone for watching and invite you back for the second part of this inside front cover. And so please join me next week when I do part 2 of this inside front cover of my Stitch Notebook. Please check out my website, LyndaCreates.com, that's Linda with the Y, for more inspiration. And also, if you haven't watched the beginning of the notebook cover, the Stitch Notebook cover, please watch those videos. And I will see you in my next video.